Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us. For the majority of this meeting, we're just going to go ahead and keep everybody on mute just to eliminate background noise. At the end of the presentation, we're going to open up the floor for questions. So if you have any, you can unmute yourself and ask them at that time. You can also feel free throughout the presentation or at the end to use the chat function to ask questions. You can either send them directly to me, directly to Tom Reda, who's hosting, or just even to everybody, and we'll read them at the end. Again, you can do throughout the presentation or just at the end, but we'll answer the questions at the end. So again, thank you for joining us. Today's webinar is going to focus on risk mitigation for fleet operators. But before I get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about AIM, our organization, and then a little bit about our presenters. So these webinars are this webinar itself is part of a series of ongoing webinars that we've been doing. And basically, we feel at AIM that we have some of the brightest stars in the transportation industry working for us. And we'd like to, share our resources with everyone out there that can use them in any way that they can. We're always looking for a better way of doing things. And we want to, just spread that kind of growth with others. And that's basically why we have the webinars. So just a little bit about AIM. AIM Transportation Solutions is a company that offers a variety of transportation-related business solutions. We have two primary divisions. Those are AIM Leasing Company and AIM Integrated Logistics. AIM Leasing Company offers full-service leasing, commercial rentals, maintenance programs, professional shop management, and then the sale of used equipment after it comes off of contract with us. And then we also have our division AIM Integrated Logistics, and that's the division our three hosts today work for. AIM Integrated Logistics handles our dedicated contract carriage and our brokerage division. And within all of those different services that we offer, we can really customize a package for any business that is operating any kind of fleet. So then just like a little bit about AIM's footprint in the country. We have over 100 AIM operations throughout the country. And additionally, we're part of the National Lease Affiliate Network. We're actually the largest member of the National Lease Network, I do believe, if not largest, close to. So that gives us an additional 900 locations to perform service out of. We currently have around 11,000 vehicles under contract with AIM. And then on to our presenters today. We have first and foremost, Mr. Tom Reda. He is our Vice President of AIM Integrated Logistics. Tom has over 23 years of industry experience, and that is in operations, solutions, and sales. Next, we have Mr. Larry Stragowski. Larry is our Director of Business Development. He has himself over 40 years of industry experience in full-service leasing, dedicated contract carriage, and TMS solutions. And last but not least, Mr. Ron Gillum. He's also a Director of Business Development. And Ron has 43 years of industry experience in various roles covering multiple segments. And you can also see a little bit about their history with their education and so on there. So I just want to thank Tom, Larry, and Ron for joining us today. And Tom, when you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jess, for the introduction. And thank you all for taking some time out of your day to join us this afternoon. I'm going to start by talking about nuclear verdicts. And on the screen, if you're logged in, you could see it. This is a representative of some recent nuclear verdicts from 2019, or judgments that were passed down. And how you define a nuclear verdict is anything that is $10 million or more judgment was awarded to the plaintiff. And one common thing you'll see in all these cases, if you research them, is that they found the fleet operator or carrier to be negligent in some way or another. A lot of dollars here, a lot of exposure, and some names that I'm sure everyone recognizes, the FedExes and the CRST. And again, keep in mind when you're looking at this, only about 5% of cases actually go to trial. So how many are settled outside of a jury trial is unknown, and what those dollars look like, I have no idea. But again, this is a sample, and 5% going to trial. Another interesting fact that I found from the American Transportation Research Institute, that from 2006 to 2019, there was about 600 cases that went to trial that settled for over $1 million or more. 300 of those 600 cases occurred in the last 5 years. So there's definitely a trend on frequency of these verdicts. And in addition to the frequency, the dollars have also increased drastically. The average settlement is up 52% from what it was in 2006, or over the last 5 years. Additionally, if you kind of compare that to healthcare cost, healthcare, which we've all experienced increases of, grew at a rate of about 3%. So when you look at these judgments and how much more they have increased, it's really mind-boggling. The plaintiff's attorney's main position is they're going to go after showing that someone or all parties involved were negligent in one manner or another. And those verdicts and this exposure isn't limited to collisions only. We're also seeing trends with work compensation and safe working conditions as well. So what are some of the trends that we're seeing as an industry? Shippers and brokers doing their due diligence on carrier vetting. So as a shipper or a broker, who you hire, you could be responsible for. They're going to go after whomever has the biggest pockets and everybody involved with anything to do with that incident, whether it be the equipment manufacturer, the shipper, the carrier, the employee themselves. They're all going to get called in and could be held liable for something like that. So you definitely want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence on your carriers, checking out their safety scores and their ratings is important. But I'd also recommend that you look at their financials. If you're doing business with someone that is not financially stable, chances are they may have made cuts in their safety department to try and save money, which is a fool's errand. The other thing we're seeing that you've probably read about in the news is contractor misclassification. That is big, where the government is deciding that you're classifying independent contractors or owner-operators as employees, and they're being reported large settlements and judgments and whatnot. So if you use owner-operators, make sure that you're using them correctly. That includes anything up to training of them. You got to be very cautious and careful and make sure you have a system that treats those owner-operators and independent contractors as a actual business to avoid any liability or responsibility there. Negligence we talked about. I would highly recommend anyone that is operating more than 10 trucks, they have someone completely dedicated to fleet safety. Last but not least is really the Reptile Theory, which is the plaintiff's attorney are really using that to gauge empathy and embark emotions with the jury. And their goal is to prove that you are unfit to be a motor carrier. And as long as you are in business, every one of us are at risk because you have procedures that you're not following. You have procedures that you don't enforce. You're not up to date with your equipment or engaging with the latest technology that's out there, following your own hiring practices, so on and so forth. So they're really playing on the jury's emotions that you're not a safe operator and that you should no longer be operating vehicles. What does that mean to the industry or the market? Well, to recap 2019, we saw nuclear verdicts, those judgments of 10 million or more, increase by 483% from 2018 to 2019. The average carrier margin is around 5%, and that's assuming they're operating safe. Carrier bankruptcies, you saw a lot of big carriers in the industry chased out of the business in 2019 because they couldn't afford their insurance or they couldn't find drivers or a combination of all of that. And then the insurance rates continue to increase rapidly. So all those things are putting pressure in the market, which ultimately means us as consumers will pay more to have things delivered or in the products that we purchase. And this information I collected from Freight Waves. They had an article on insurance in 2020. and again, they've reported that some carriers, smaller ones specifically, may have even seen increases of up to 100% in their liability premiums. So we talked about the liability risk, but there's more at risk than just the liability that you're exposed to. And first and foremost is your brand. You need to protect your brand, and from a service perspective, and avoid making headlines on the front news, right? So you have to make sure that you have professional delivery capacity that is safe and operating to service your customers. And then obviously the headlines thing goes without saying. You don't want to be getting press for negative type news. Your equipment is at risk. You got to make sure that you're utilizing it properly, maintaining it, and that it's scalable to meet your business needs. You've got the ever-changing compliance with the DOT and CSA programs that are out there. It seems like every 6 or 8 months we're getting something comes down from the DOT, changing the hours of service or putting in a different requirement and so on and so forth. So having that fleet safety manager is invaluable to keeping up with those compliance issues. You risk the capital. If you're not a carrier or a trucking company and you're delivering your goods out of necessity, you may find better use of capital than paying drivers, paying for equipment, paying for fuel, paying for the liability insurance, and so on and so forth. You could take that capital, invest it into your core competency, whether it be manufacturing or retail. So you're risking that capital that you're spending by operating a fleet. And then the delivery capacity itself, that's the driver. The headlines are all over the news. The driver shortage is real. It's not projected to get any better, and those resources are not infinite. So making sure that you have the right people in the seats interacting with your customers, delivering your product is important as well. So what are the goals when operating a fleet? It's to get your goods or services to a customer on time, complete, damage-free, safely. Right? That's your ultimate goal. And what goes into achieving that goal are these 6 different characteristics. Starting with the person or people doing the work. We'll talk about that more in depth on selection and hiring process and vetting. The material is your product that you're trying to get to the end consumer or into market. The machine is your equipment, your trucks, your trailers, your straight trucks, whatever it may be that you're using to achieve that goal. You have to manage those people, machines, and material. How you get it there, the method you're using, that would be design or the solution on getting your product to market, and then the environment. And that's really 2 things. You've got the driver's environment that he works in and what that scope of work entails and how we're making that end delivery, as well as just the industry environment that we operate in. If you take nothing away from today, other than this slide, this will be important. Again, the plaintiff's attorney in an accident or incident, they're going to look for the dirty 5, as they call it in the industry, to prove some type of negligence. And these are those. So if you look, the first one is fatigue driving, and that's deeper than just the log violations, right? But it does entail the log violations over the last 6 months. They're going to audit those and see what that driver did, how they performed, were they out of violation or out of scope? If they were, how you dealt with them, how you dealt with other drivers in your fleet. Is it a policy that is allowed? Is it a policy that is encouraged? Are drivers moonlighting? and you're not capturing that activity is something that they'll dive into. Is the dispatcher dispatching drivers without adequate time to run is something you need to be concerned of. The other one is if a driver expresses fatigue and needs to shut down and you know you can't, this load has to get there, you could be responsible for that as well. So again, that would be number one. Number two, we've all seen it, driving down the road, drivers texting or talking while driving. Distracted driving is a big one. What is your policy for talking on the phone while operating a commercial motor vehicle? They will pull cell phone records and match them up to ELDs at the time of the accident, and could argue the driver was distracted at the time of the collision. Driving under the influence. Obviously, if you're involved in an accident, a large accident, you'll have to go for a DOT post-accident drug and alcohol screening. And obviously, you don't want to get caught with that. But you also got to make sure that you don't allow folks with a previous history of failing drug tests to stay employed, or your drivers are included in a random pool to make sure that they could be selected for those screenings, and that you're doing pre-employment drug testing as well. Lack of equipment maintenance is big, is also. If you have the equipment, you got to make sure that you're obviously maintaining it from a PM perspective, annual inspection, and also just correction of defects, because they will want and ask for 18-month repair history in the face of a major collision, and want those records to make sure that you're keeping up with the upkeep on the maintenance, and that we're not asking drivers as a motor carrier to use defective equipment of any sort. So, and then obviously inexperienced or improperly trained drivers. You probably got a couple things there. You've got a driver operating a vehicle that he may not have the correct license to operate. Seems simple, but it has happened. Not a name, but in the industry that has happened. If you hire someone that is outside your guidelines, you could be responsible as well. Or if you continue to employ someone that is outside the guidelines you have, opens up negligence as well. So you got a couple things there. If you have guidelines, stick to them. Don't deviate from them. If you have someone fall out of those guidelines, make sure you're addressing it. Because juries are going to look at past performance as a future indicator, and then ask what you're doing as a root cause analysis to prevent something like this in the future. What went wrong? Where did you fall down? So how do you mitigate the risk, which is the topic of this webinar? And we're going to go through some ways that will help you do that. And that really starts with 1 and 2. They're closely tied together. Hire the right drivers, hire the right fleet managers. Companies, great companies are made up of great people, and you got to make sure you have the best folks in your seats, because not having a driver is better than having a bad driver. Same thing with the fleet manager. Whoever's working with those folks, interacting with them is important as well. With that said, if you hire the right folks, you should be accepted. You should expect and have some good turnover. We don't want to turn everyone over, but the reality is that sometimes you have to. And again, if you have someone that is an opportunity, you got to ask yourself, do I want them driving this vehicle down the road? And if I was questioned on why I continue to employ them, could I defend that? Obviously, you have to review your network and your delivery solution. Make sure you're doing it safely and efficiently. Is there a better way to do it? The reality is that there are very few, if any, drivers left that want to work 70 hours every week. So if you are set up to have your fleet run like that every week, it could lead to fatigue. Is there a better way to do it through a design without sacrificing productivity and increasing cost? Well, 99% of the time there is. You could do some things to make the solution better and safer. We talked about staying current with the regulations, and again, I'd go back to having that safety manager, if you operate more than 10 trucks, overseeing that and keeping up with those and making sure that the team is aware of what's going on. Vetting carriers. Again, we talked about the scores and the ratings of the carriers that you're using, but I would also look at their financial stability to make sure that they're not in trouble there and that they are a professional organization and doing everything in their power to put a safe product on the road to your customers with your product. Policies and policy compliance. Policies are great if you have them, but if you have them and you don't use them or enforce them, they're dangerous. So whatever your guidelines are for hiring or progressive discipline or coaching and mentoring, adhere by them, because once you're found outside of those policies and allowing someone to do something that is outside of that scope, you're opening yourself up for more liability and exposure. Technology enhancements. Making those investments is huge. It really shows a sign of good faith if you're voluntarily adopting additional safety measures for oversight of the fleet operations. What does that technology look like? There's a lot of brands out there, but the two most notable, collision avoidance technology that you equip the truck with, has been extreme benefit to the industry, as well as cameras, drive cam cameras. It shows that you're using technology to support and improve the safety of your operation, and it pays for itself. Equipment, keeping those records, keeping current with all your annual inspections and correcting defects timely is very important as well. You have to make sure that you're maintaining that equipment and the driver is operating a vehicle that is safe. Then last but not least is really outsourcing. If you operate a fleet and you're doing it out of necessity, it may not make sense. So outsourcing allows you to maintain control of that fleet without having the risk of actually operating it. And a lot of times companies AIM is able to come in and review your operation and find some efficiencies and either reduced or maintained cost and take that exposure off of you. So that said, I'm going to turn it over to Ron Gillum, who's going to talk a little bit about AIM Integrated.
Thanks, Tom, and good afternoon. Wanted to share out front here. Those not familiar with AIM, there's a lot of feedback there. Are you all right? For those not familiar with AIM, we wanted to share with you a brief overview of who we are as well as our capabilities and services here. So next couple slides are going to kind of go through that, but I want to make a mention out front. Jess had made a mention of the history, longevity of AIM, and I just wanted to add, additional note about being part of a large, what has become a large privately held, in this case, family-owned business. And Tom Fleming and the Fleming family and certainly long tenured executive management have done a tremendous job of growing the company into a national player without sacrificing the principles and characteristics of what brought it, what it was established on. And that's, I think, a differentiator, not only to the marketplace, but certainly relates to internally the employees and therefore our customers. So I think it's it's a key piece to understand our foundational pieces. So we still have that strong customer-driven, stable flexibility, integrity, the ability to make those decisions in a fast and fair, span of time here. So those are certainly some of the critical principles and characteristics that rest with us today, and we think that's an important piece of who we are. On the notice slide here, we are a solution company, and we have all the appropriate technology certainly to support not only what we need internally, but for our customers. We happen from a standpoint of design, engineering, we use Appian, and I'm going to hit that on the next slide here, but out front, back a minute, Tom. Let me just mention these. There you go. I want to mention before we get to the next one, which we'll talk about Appian in a minute. The services and capabilities that we do, the core of who we are is dedicated contract carriage. Larry's going to touch on a little deeper on the TMS part, but certainly carrier management and brokerage, those other aspects. We do a great job with some name brand customers and yard management, and certainly pulling together all the years of experience and operating background allows us to certainly consult with a given group as well. So that's all evolved into a significant customer base, 40 plus, and over 500 dedicated drivers. Next slide here is, back to Appian. That is the driver for our solution base and giving us the software technology platform to design. It all starts with key ingredients of good data. The type of data normally then that we would pull together would be certainly we need to understand the delivery windows, certainly full number of loads and the frequency of those loads are a critical piece. Certainly the basic ones of mileage, stops, hours, all important ingredients to give you start building that solution. So for productivity and efficiency is the key focus out of this. You see what is a duck chart, which evolves out of this Appian, one of several, and it allows us to have a visual as we look at building the right routing, the right efficiencies, and engineering the right solutions. The goal is to do more with less in what we support, and while maintaining a high level of safety and service. So that's a critical piece of what we do, how we do it on these two slides here. And I'm going to turn over to the next, and Larry's going to drill down a little further on technology and other things. So Larry.
Thanks, Ron. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about technology enhancements and how we support our clients in the AIM dedicated contract carriage level. First of all, I'd like to say technology is intertwined in our lives 24/7. It just is, from smartphones to smart TVs, with tablets, laptops, you have smart cars. Heck, you even have smart appliances now. So my wife would like to have one that closes the refrigerator door when I don't, but we'll go on from there. But technology is a big part of transportation. You kind of, the old guard would say goodbye to the Ticonderoga #2 hello keyboard. That's just the way it is. So we have 4 basic platforms up there: Logistics Pro, Customer Load Board, Where's My Load, and our AIM Navigator dashboards. Okay, I'd like to put these in like a preload category, a real-time in process category, and a post-load category. So first I'll start with preload category, which is Logistics Pro. Logistics Pro is AIM's proprietary TMS management software package. Okay, we provide forward dispatching into this, which captures all the load details. It drives the management reports, customer KPIs, metrics. It also drives the driver payroll. And what's nice about this too is we can, kind of sync in with our onboard systems, and we can download the run directly to the unit. So when the driver jumps in the unit and activates his onboarding, his run will pop up and he'll be ready to go. So that's the preload side. The real-time in-process sides, there's two of them. The first one I'll talk about is Where's My Load? Where's My Load was an app developed by AIM's IT department. Okay, and it's a real-time app, and it's an end user. It's a customer end user app. So it's provided from the client to their end user. We provide a unique ID to the load, okay, that end user's load. And when that load leaves, that end user can track that load all through its process. Okay, so it knows when it's going to get there, and its estimated time of arrival. And it works really well for job site applications and customer assist at the unload functions. I mean, just that way they know that when they have to have the crew there, the crew's not going to sit there for an hour and a half while when they don't know the truck is coming, and that's, time that they have to spend in real time or overtime, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a great tool for those applications. Then we have the AIM customer load board. The customer load board it tracks the integrated load in basically real time. It gives you a bird's eye view of the progress. It's a great tool for the customer service portion of the client. Okay, so we can do away with the cell phone calls and the texts and the emails to try to find out where the driver is, or calling the driver on the cell phone. They're going to know, especially for multi-load type applications, they're going to follow that breadcrumb. They're going to see when it left, stop 1, where is it en route to stop 2, or it's left stop 2 and now it's on to route 3. And it can also tell if it's inside going to stay inside the delivery windows. So the customer service group has a great deal of information, and they can be proactive to the end user versus reactive to the end user. So like I said, it's a great tool. And then the last tool is a post load, which is the AIM Navigator dashboard. It's a cell phone app, and it's really designed to take the week, the month, the 3 months, the 6 months, the 12 months, the 24 months worth of data that is driven off of the invoices and put them into these dials, okay? And you can have up to 10 dials. And it's a very quick way for the upper management group to really look at what's going on in their delivery system as a cost per mile, cost per stop, percent of empty loads, delay time, cost per linear foot, a number of different, MPGs, those type of things. So it gives you a pretty quick overview on how you're doing over a period of time. So those are the the technology enhancements. We also have a fifth one, which isn't on there, which is PeopleNet. That's our onboard application. And we use that because we also use a function of that called workflow, which allows us to track the driver, make sure that, we know how many hours he has available for him, and try to retain some type of productivity on the driver, and make sure that, he can get a fourth load off because he has that amount of time at the end of the week. That's kind of our internal side of that. So that's kind of our technology platforms. Now let's talk about, service is our only product. And the first thing we're going to talk about is driver capacity. Driver capacity. How do you keep it, or how do you get it? How do you keep it? Tom talked about it a little earlier. Talent management, our recruiting people. We've got a great group headed up by Eleanor Arnold, and AIM has invested heavily in processes and systems to enhance, the marketing aspect and the follow-up aspect. How we touch those drivers all the time as far as, you know, how's your day going? What's going on? You know, do you have any issues? We're just following up, you know, how's your equipment and everything. It makes those guys feel important, or the drivers to feel important. And it's a great process. And like I said, we've invested heavily in it because we know, you know, they're the key to our entire operation. We talk about control and reduce bad turnover. Basically, if you hire quality people that are set up for the job description, it pretty much eliminates bad turnover, plain and simple. Turnover costs money. It costs money from the start of the supply chain all the way through the end. It does. Trying to get rid of it or minimize it is one of the best things you can do. AIM is happy that we have 98.5% of our seats that are filled. Are we always going to be at 100%? No. Do we have companies that are? Yes. Do we have companies that aren't? No. Yes, we do. It's just, you know, some are very difficult with 24/7 operations, productivity, you know, driver productivity, unload, and a lot of different things. You know, everybody has them. Transparent driver compensation packages, both to the driver and to our customer. We're pretty upfront with our customers how we're paying our driver. It's important for them to know that we're not shortchanging, you know, one of the most important aspects of their delivery system, plain and simple. You can't, you know, if you pay them well, they're going to stay. If you don't compensate them well for the job they do, you're going to have that turnover. Technology, we just went through it. Basically, Ron talked about Appian as our optimization tool. We talked about the dashboards that you have available there. We can, you know, kind of train you on how to use it and what type of data to glean from it that's, you know, workable for your operation. Real-time visibility, we saw that in the two platforms plus the PeopleNet, and then customized reporting, you know, with all your KPIs and your metrics, you know, to help, you know, you control your transportation costs. Safety. The first one, top down, all levels, cultural focus approach. I don't think I've ever worked for a company that safety wasn't paramount, and it always started at the top. It started from the owner down to the presidents, down to the VP level, down to the mid managers, you know, the client managers, and then right on down to the drivers. And in fact, it rolls into everyone that's involved within the organization. Safety is key. Tom mentioned it earlier. We only had a 5% on a margin side. You know, you have 1 or 2 accidents, that margin goes away really, really fast. It's a high focus area for the AIM group. Minimum eligibility guidelines. I would say that AIM doesn't have minimum eligibility guidelines. They have more than minimum eligibility guidelines. They're very stickler when they go to new hiring processes on what they do with their drivers. So we're probably better than what the DOT mandates up front. Again, you hire good quality people with a safe track record, you get the outcomes. Driver scorecards. We score all of our drivers over a myriad of applications, you know, idle time, driving speed, MPGs, a number of different ones that go across there. We give driver, you know, it's nice for drivers to be appreciated on their success, but these scorecards also let us, you know, kind of up coach, so to speak, some of the mediocre drivers and get them into a better and a safer and a better score so they can improve, you know, across the board. And again, trying to make them safer, better drivers and have a better career with AIM. And then the collision avoidance technology, we use Bendix Wingman, and it's basically for the lane departure side and that auto braking. I mean, that's kind of what we're using. You know, Tom talked about those 5 areas. A fatigued driver, that little bit of noise or vibration or whatever they do, if they're, you know, in that lane departure, can go from a tragic situation to I better pull off up here and get out of the truck and walk around a little bit. As far as operations, we have a decentralized field management, both with the operations group. We have regional operations managers, and the safety group. We have regional safety guys, and they work on site with a lot of our clients, and they also handle our any clients that have on-site supervision. It's very important that we have them out in the field so that they can be proactive with the clients versus reactive. Customer gain shares, I call it our value proposition. From the flex fleets we can do with the AIM National Lease folks, and to get some additional equipment for seasonality, to our backhaul gain shares, which allow customers to get revenue for some empty miles or empty stem miles coming back that they normally would get nothing for. It helps offset some costing structure and helps reduce their bottom line. And then obviously our 3PL, so that you can have a one-stop shop and you can do some carrier management, so you're not calling multiple vendors. The DCC group, obviously it's growing rapidly. It's 10% or more year over year. In my tenure, DCC has been a very growing piece of the business. A lot of private fleets that started out as private fleets have morphed into this because it wasn't their core function. Their other core functions are in their processes to either manufacture or distribute products. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Ron. I just wanted to wrap things up real quick and talk about the AIM advantage. In a nutshell, AIM Integrated runs private fleets, and we have the infrastructure behind us to support your business. And anytime, anywhere, we'd love to collaborate with folks on this call to see if the outsourcing makes sense for you. Again, control costs, possibly save costs, but definitely reduce risk while you maintain your current service levels. At AIM, what we're all about, safety is number one, as we talked about. In trucking, mitigating that risk is vitally important on so many levels. Being family owned and operated allows us a next level flexibility. And I think COVID-19 pandemic definitely proved that, as we were able to work with and proactively help a lot of our customers in various situations, whether it be slowdowns or surges. We worked with all of them individually on their need. On this call alone, between Larry, Ron, and myself, you had over 100 years of logistic experience. There's hundreds more behind Larry and I that work at AIM, so you're getting the benefit of that experience. We talked about service being our product, and it's true, and we're in business because of your business. So know that. The secret sauce is finding those career professional drivers, hiring them and retaining them forever is really the secret to our success. We have technology that really supports the drivers and the operators and our customers. And we have the flexibility with that technology because we develop most of it, if not all of it, in-house with our own group. We've got decentralized management we talked about, but we also have 24/7 coverage at our corporate office to support our operators and drivers and customers however needed. When we start a customer, that's not the end. We're constantly chasing that continuous improvement, because if the customer wins, AIM wins. So we're only as good as our last delivery, and we've got to continually chase that and find ways to gain efficiencies, productivity, service, and control and reduce cost. And last but not least, operating fleets is our core competency. And again, if it's not what you do on a day in, day out basis, having that risk and the liability, the capital, and the exposure may or may not make sense for you. So that's all I had. Jess, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Tom, and Larry and Ron as well. That was some great information, and certainly there's a lot of risk out there that makes something outsourcing like integrated sound very appealing. So I just right now wanted to open the floor up for questions. I did get a couple questions come through the chat during the presentation, but if anyone has questions, they can unmute themselves and ask verbally or type them in the chat now. But I'll go ahead and get started, Tom, with the first question, which was, how do you operate successfully in an industry with such low profit margins?
That's a good question. It really was the subject of our webinar today, and that's really mitigating that risk. You make money in trucking by being safe and controlling turnover. And if you could do those two things well, you can generally make that 5 or 6% that the industry is talking about. If you don't, you'll fail miserably. And it comes down to that driver selection process, having the right solution, backing it with technology, using history to forecast the future behavior. And those are all things that play into it and how we're able to remain profitable and efficient.
Got it. I got another one. How are you able to identify and recruit professional drivers?
That's a good question. Everybody is aware of the driver situation in the country. There's a shortage of qualified professional drivers. And because we're a trucking company, we specialize in hiring professional drivers. So we have that infrastructure that Larry talked about that allows us to find the best drivers in the industry. And we use multiple methods. Social media is big. Referrals is another opportunity we have. And we're constantly recruiting. So it's not as if we only try to hire when we have a need. We hire, we're taking applications actively, and we're building a pipeline. So we may get a call from someone today about a job that may or may not be a fit for us or for the individual. We'll put them in our pipeline and then follow up with them when it comes back. But hiring drivers is a big part of our business and what we do. So we've gotten really, really good and efficient at it and identifying the right folks.
Got it. Next, and this is the last question I have, unless anyone else has one. Do I avoid the liability of workman's comp if I outsource?
So yeah, that's a good question. So being that if you outsource with AIM Integrated Logistics, those employees work for AIM, therefore they would be covered under our work comp insurance policies. So that exposure or risk would go away as well.
Okay, so that's, all right, got it. All right, well, that was the last question I had. So thank you very much to Tom and Larry and Ron for your presentation today. That was some great information. And thank you to everyone who took the time out of their busy schedules to join us. We really appreciate your participation today. I will be sending out a link to the video recording of this presentation in case there's anyone else in your organization you want to share it with or you want to revisit any of the information. That email will have my contact information as well as the contact information for our hosts in it. So if there's anything that we can help you with regarding risk management, any further information you want about that topic or about AIM in general, we'd be really happy to reach out to you. So that'll be coming out later this afternoon or tomorrow morning, depending on how long the video takes to buffer. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope that everyone has a fantastic rest of their day and a fantastic week. And I'll catch up with you on the next webinar. Thank you, guys.
Have a great, safe week.